how you doing? It's Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel. And of course we have hardintentions.com where we sell our hats and our shirts and other stuff. So please check that out. And also I'm on Dream Chopper. It's going into the top 5 next. I made it to the top 10 in my group. That's going to the top 5 in my group, and I don't know how it works, but I think the votes got to roll over. And let's see, it's dreamchopper.com/2020 Mitch Smiley. You can go there and vote if you'd like. Someone said they'd like to see me do a video about what it was like to go to the county jail at such a young age, and such a serious charge. And I've been thinking about it for about a week, and I'm out, I did my time, I'm off parole, and I'm living life, but it's hard to really look back and see that time in my life. I mean, I can talk about certain events or whatever, but I got busted, and we're sitting in the police station in El Cajon, got processed. They took us out and drew blood. And I could hear him talking to my co-defendants in another tank, and one of them said, "Well, what's going to happen to Smiley? He's going to go to youth authority." And he had it in his mind that I would go to youth authority, and maybe he didn't realize I had already been there twice. And I knew I wanted to yell under the door, "Hey, shut up!" But it was too late. He was already talking to him. So I knew I wasn't going to youth authority, that we had a serious charge. It was probably wouldn't be able to beat it, and I was going to go to prison. Even though I'm not the one who did the stabbing, I was involved in a fight that led up to it. And so, I knew it was not good. I still kind of played it off like, yeah, big deal, right? But it was a big deal. Then I went over to juvenile hall for like a day and a half, whatever, and they decided to send me over to the county jail to be tried as an adult. And I'd been there in the juvenile tank. I knew a lot of guys in the jail, some of my homeboys. So there I go, off to the juvenile tank again, second time in there, and but this time I was fighting a murder. And I remember being in the cell, man, like the first couple nights, a week, whatever, and just being so fucking stressed out, man, that I puked. I was just full-blown stress. My lawyer told me, "Hey, you're facing 15 to life," and he told me straight away, if you get convicted, you're going to do 10 years minimum. Then you have to see a parole board. He gave me the whole scoop. So I just thought, man, this is not good. If you're in the county jail fighting a beef that you did, your actions, who knows what happened, who might tell on you, what to expect, and whether or not you could take a deal, go to jail or not. But I had 2 co-defendants, and they offered me a manslaughter, but it was a package deal. 2 of us were offered manslaughters, and the other one was offered a second degree, and really he had no intentions of taking that second degree. So I knew that I was in for a struggle. And I also knew, because I'm kind of a screw up, I wasn't going to do 10 years and get out. So there I was in a juvenile tank, man, and like I said, I always thought, hey, I'm about the business, and I had no problem beating people down, but here I am in jail for a murder. Then I ran into guys in jail like George Miller, who told me, "Man, bro, it's ugly," and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "They got you, and I said, "I know." But I also had some other charges I had to go to a lineup for, and the trustees made the lineup out, and I went to that lineup, and they picked somebody else out. and I don't remember exactly what those charges were, but a lot of the trustees and the older homies and the other tanks would look out for me. They're like, hey, I'm a youngster, got a younger homie over there fighting a life sentence, so they looked out for me a bit, you know. And then I turned 18 and they moved me down to the second floor, which was like it's like a misdemeanor floor. And I knew I wasn't supposed to be down there. And but I was in a regular tank with adults, you know, and there I was a kid. And a couple of days later, I moved up to the third floor, and I was in 3B. And now I'm in the big boy tank, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I was in 3A. I was in 3A. And I was in tank with Danny Dog. Rest in peace. And, you know, I told him about my case. And, you know, he gave me a lot of advice. What to stay away from when I went to prison. Basically told me to stay away from the gangs, the drugs, gambling, all that kind of stuff. Basically told me, you know, to stay away from stuff that would get me in trouble. And, well, you know, I liked being in the tank with him. He always had a smile on his face, cup of coffee, you know, stand on the table, look out the window, and just stand there and bullshit with him at the bars. But talking to him, I started to realize, you know, what I was going to be faced with. You know, I was going to go from the frying pan into the fire, really. You know, I knew it was going to be a long process to be in the county jail and then go to prison. And the county jail sucked. I was in the old county jail in San Diego. You got a coffee cake, oatmeal, a piece of fruit, I think, and a milk. 5 days a week for breakfast. You got 2 sandwiches, I think. Piece of fruit for lunch. Dinner, you got a tray. Then on the weekends, you got a tray for breakfast. The food was terrible. A lot of starch, you know. But the tank had a hot plate, had a TV, you know. I didn't watch a lot of TV at the time. TV was mostly for guys that were in and out, you know. And I started seeing a lot of guys that were in and out. You know, they were like on their way back to prison. They just got out a few months ago, and now they're on their way back. And they would tell stories about prison, you know. And then like guys like Dan would say, them dudes are full of shit. You know, this is how it is. And I started realizing, you know, that the guys I talked to that were in lower level prisons were a lot different than guys who were in higher level prisons. And they didn't really have a point system or a level system. Back then, it went by your age. But guys that were in Folsom or San Quentin were a lot different than guys that were in CRC or Susanville or whatever, some low level prisons. They were different. They were more serious. They would laugh about stuff, you know, joke a little bit, but they were serious about being in jail, about being in prison, about how things were. Also started realizing that most of the dudes in there were dope fiends, and they were in there for drug-related crimes. And so, drug-related crimes meaning selling dope, or doing armed robberies to get money for dope, or doing burglaries, or stealing cars, shit like that, to get money to buy dope. So and you know, I didn't shoot dope. I used to snort crank, drink, smoke weed, you know. Snorting crank was cool, taking pills, you know, speed, whites. It was a lot different thing than it is now. And so I would come from kind of a different background than these guys that were on the street slamming dope, you know. And it was a culture shock, dude. Because I always thought, you know, guys that are in jail, they're gangsters. guys are in jail. They're tough guys, gangsters, you know. And yeah, it was a different scene. And then you know, I remember you know, the whites and the Southern Mexicans were pretty tight in the county jail at that time, and in prison. I mean, you had regular old dudes that were Chicano dudes from San Diego or in prison from wherever. They were just regular old dudes that happened to be from Southern California, and a lot of them were pretty cool. So I was in there. I mean, I remember one time the tank captain was junior in 3A, and there was a little scuffle over a hot plate, a little argument, you know, and he went in. It was between a paisa and a black dude, and then as he was walking away, black dude came up behind him, grabbed him from behind, and another dude was going at him like to get him, and I stepped in the middle of it because I figured that's what I should do. Socked the dude in the face, and you know, that broke that up. And then Junior told me, "Hey, come on down in the cell." I would think I was the only white dude in the whole tank, and so that guy didn't like me socking him in the face and getting in the middle of that. And so Junior and his homies set it up where I could go in the day room and fight that dude one-on-one. And yeah, I got my aggressions out on that dude, really, because I was getting really frustrated being in jail, not knowing how long you're going to be in jail, when you're going to go to prison, what your sentence is going to be. It was a rough deal, man. So I beat that dude down, and then I remember later on that night, the black dudes lit that dude on fire while he was sleeping and basically kicked him out of the tank. Because, yeah, anyways, you know, there were some cool times. Later on during my trial, I'd give dudes, they come and get you like 3 in the morning, man. And I would give dudes packs of cigarettes when they called my name to go out. And they would go out, because then you got to go out in the stairwell. And the stairwell goes from the first floor all the way up to each floor along the way. And they would go sit in the stairwell, and you sit in there until they call your name, and then you go to another holding tank. You're sitting in holding tanks for 3-4 hours before you get to where you're supposed to go, and then wait for your attorney. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, man. You know, then you're in your jury trial, your prelim or whatever. Then you go sit in the tank during lunch, come back after lunch. It's just and then sit in the tank until they get an escort to take you back to the jail. So I would pay dudes to go in my name. It would take them about an hour or so to figure out that they got the wrong dude, and so I would get an hour and a half extra sleep for a pack of cigarettes, you know. But you know, and then, you know, that's another thing, man. They going to court all the time for motions and for you know, picking a jury, prelim, trial, all this stuff, man. Bail hearings. They had me at a $500,000 bail, which, you know, was way too much, you know. So it got frustrating, and it wears you down. So you got shitty food. You're being worn down by the system of going from your cell to court and back every day. All the strip searching, all the movements from tank to tank. You know, and then dudes would get fucked up in them tanks, you know. I seen quite a few dudes being there running their mouth, and then some from another race might jam them, and they get them up, dude would get fucked up. Somebody get fucked up, you know. So I would just sit in there, keep my mouth shut, and just watch and listen. But pretty much once we got to the trial phase, once they got us over to the courthouse, they would put us in the tank by ourselves. And one of my co-defendants was in the hole, so he would go to a tank by himself. He was shackled and all that stuff. But yeah, I remember in that time when I was going to trial, I was in a different tank, and the tank captains were Ronnie and Alvin. They were two black dudes. They were dope fiends, they'd been in the pen. They were both pretty big sized dudes. And, they asked me about my case. Because I was 18 years old. These dudes were in their 30s, mid 30s, whatever. And they couldn't believe that I was fighting this murder, and I was a kid, and I was 17 when I got busted. That was a rare deal back then. You didn't see a lot of 17-year-old, 18-year-old guys in the county fighting serious crimes, So when they bring the dinner trays, I'm at court. So they would take, and they always got extra trays, and they would put a tray with a tray over it, They'd hold a tray for me, and I'd get back from court, man, and they'd be like, "Here, youngster," and they'd be smiling, how to go in court today, and give me 2 or 3 extra trays, and so I got to eat good. But they were looking out for me, and that's where you start to get the sense of, with some guys who are serious about it, there's a little camaraderie there, even amongst other races. I started to see how treacherous it could be too, because, I had a homeboy that was in a tank. There was a little riot between the whites and the blacks, and they put the white dudes in the hole, some of the blacks, and they moved some of the blacks in that riot to a certain tank. And then once they got all that squared away, they brought one of my homeboys, Ben Edelman, down and put him in that tank. And the cops didn't even leave the floor. They just went down the hallway and waited. And sure enough, Ben, they got into it, man. And it was not a one-on-one deal. It was several guys on him. But the cops set that up. So I would get a sense of camaraderie in some cases. In other cases, I would get a sense of, how dirty the cops were, how dirty they played, and they would set you up and get you fucked up. Yeah, it was ugly. I went to the hole a couple times there for shit that was, whether I was doing it or not. It was just, like kind of like harassment. Once you've been in the jail for a certain length of time, you get frustrated. You start speaking your mind. Cops don't like that shit. They run the jail. I think they should have a jail with guys that were facing serious time, not Rudy Poot motherfuckers mixed in with lifers. So, yeah, I went to the hole a few times. And, but I'm going to tell you, man, I had super anxiety and stress the whole time, because I was young, and you put a facade on like, yeah, I don't really care, but you do care. And you realize, hey, I'm going away for a while. Yeah, I knew we were going to prison. My trial wasn't going all that well, but I didn't have any other options. They didn't offer me a single deal. It was a package deal. So, fortunately, I found guilty. I had to wait. And at my sentencing, I went to youth authority for a 90-day op, and my co-defendants went to prison. Because I was a juvenile, I got that 90-day op in youth authority. But, of course, like I knew, they weren't going to take me. I got a visit from my girl and from my mom when I was there. Got to eat good. And then I got sent back to county jail and off to prison. But, I don't want to say the prospects of the future scared me, but the prospects of what I faced, 15 life sentence, going to prison. And back then, they only had 4 main prisons. They had Tracy, Soledad, San Quentin, Folsom. That was it. Now we got 34 or 35 prisons in California. So I knew I was going to one of those 4 prisons. It was not going to be no easy time. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, you don't really experience fear, but the reality of what you're faced with, it creates anxiety and uncertainty. And you think, how long am I going to live? Because I had a 10-year minimum, you go to board in 10 years, and according to the law, you're supposed to be found suitable for parole and release thereafter. But of course, politics changed all that, and I ended up doing 38 years. But when you're that young, you're faced with that much time, and you're faced with the prospects of going to prison, like one of those 4 prisons, and guys are getting stabbed, they're having riots occasionally, people preying on other people. And once you get there, you realize all that stuff is even more serious than the stories you heard in jail. But that shit causes anxiety, man. You don't know how long you're going to live. If there's, 4,000 dudes in a prison, and there's, 300 or 400 stabbings a year, the odds of somebody getting stabbed are pretty big, Yeah, I mean, when you're 17 years old, man, and you're faced with losing everything you ever thought you wanted in life, especially your, motorcycles, your friends, your brothers, it sucked. It sucked. And you kind of know a lot of guys and chicks that on the street are they're not gonna toe the line the whole time. Sure enough, I got mail for a while. A lot of people fell away. They quit riding because they got life to live, and you're not going to get out, right? You're doing life. So yeah, it was a massive anxiety, frustration about the uncertainty of things, Then of course, like I said, when you get to Chino, they take all your shit, and people tell you that been to the pen, when you get there, you're going to lose everything you got, so send your shit home. And so the prospects of not having stuff that, that you've been having because you were on the street, it all starts to set in, man. And my mindset didn't go right to, this is it, this is prison. But that's when it started to develop, the mindset of, I'm going to prison. I'm going to be in prison a long time. How's this going to work out? Started to set in, and it was not fun. It's an ugly deal, man. And you also start to realize, even though you got 2 co-defendants, that you're going to be doing this alone. You got homeboys all around you. That's cool. But the feelings you experience at the loss of your family, not being around your family, not going to holiday functions with your family, not drinking beer with your friends, not riding motorcycles with your friends, everything, all that really starts to sink in, that's gone. And it wasn't easy. But I started to, especially once I got to prison, saw the treachery going on, backstabbing. It started to set in. I started to realize, hey, I'm going to be doing this alone. Even if you get visits from the streets only once in a while, and even if you got a cellie, even if you go to chow with a group of guys, you eat at the same table, and you work with people. I mean, of course, that was later on down the line, but I mean, the county jail, really, I started to feel like, you know what, I'm going to be doing this by myself. And of course I did. It was an ugly feeling, because I'm pretty outgoing with people. I like kicking it, doing cool, positive stuff. Even when I was doing bad shit, I like to have a good time with my friends. And so it's like, hey, it's like this world's leaving, gone. Now you're faced with this world. And you got to learn how to live in there. So it was frustrating. A lot of anxiety. Then once you get sentenced, you're waiting on the bus. And it was just... then, of course, you're off to the pen. you're waiting to go off the pen. You got to live around all these dudes, and a lot of the guys that aren't facing a lot of time in prison, they're the ones that cause problems all the time in the fucking county jail. So, yeah. I remember one time this homeboy Kraut came in the tank, and he's like, yeah, I got a lawyer, this and that. And he was into the dope scene real tough, the crank. He spent the day and night in the county jail in my tank, bullshit with me. He was a biker, I think he had a knucklehead. He went out to court and came back, and he's like, hey, here. He went and got a gram of crank from his lawyer. He goes, have my lawyer bring me that, man, for you. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. So, and he left that night. That was pretty cool. So, he basically is like, hey, it's going to be good, just, because he's, in the outlaw biker scene and all that shit. And he was just like, hey, youngster, you're going to go do it, and it'll be okay. I'm like, yeah, it's going to have to be, So, yeah, there was camaraderie, and there was a little bit of this and that kind of carries you through. But in the beginning, that county jail, man, there's a lot of fighting going on. I told you the stairwell, guys catch guys in the stairwell, and people get their ass beat down, and sometimes they get holes poked in them. And you can't get out of the stairwell unless you get the attention of a cop to come over there and key the gate for you. So, it's a pretty dangerous place. So you start to see a little more serious violence, and you hear stories about what you're going to be faced with. And that adds more tension, But that county jail was no fun, man. You got to put on your tough guy face, and that's when it starts to develop. That facade that you carry through your prison time, like the image that you want people to see. 99% of them. It starts to develop in that county jail. Yeah, it's no fun. So I would just say, the youngsters out there in the mix, especially if you've never been to jail, back on up if you can. If you make up your decision to back up, you'll be saving yourself a lot of grief and sorrow. Also for your family as well. Because they go through the same shit, only worse. Because they're worried about you in there. So, yeah, it's no fun. And, people don't have to go through it. If they straighten their ass up, get on the right track before they end up there. Because the bottom line is, if you go to jail and off to prison, you're either going to straighten your ass up, or when you get out, you're going to go back again and again and again. And I've seen it a million times, guys getting out, come back, get out, come back. So you're either going to wise up after your first term and stay out, or you're going to keep going back on the installment plan until you get a serious crime, which gives you a life term. So just think of all the shit you'll be faced with in that county jail if you get a serious crime. And make the right decision, man. Like they say, jail's full of guys who made bad decisions. And in my case, I made bad decisions also when I was in jail. But, I got on the right track before I got out. Now I'm out here living, but, you don't have to go through it. It's an ugly, nasty, bitter thing. And it'll lead you a lot of disillusion. And, yeah, it's no fun. So get your shit together. When you get your shit together, get it together right. Do it hard. Study hard. Work hard. Think. Do things right, man. And you won't have to go through that fucking miserable county jail. And trust me, they're miserable. Worse now than ever before. We love you. Take care. Do it hard. Thank you for watching. And if you get a chance to stop by dreamchopper.com/2020 Mitch Smiley and give me a vote, I'd be grateful. I'd like to win this thing. Take care, folks. Bye.